But often as human beings, we really do wonder, who am I? Especially when things in our life begin to get a little tough. We wonder, who am I? Why is it that these spiritual ideals that we've learned in unity and on our transformational path, why aren't they working in this moment necessarily? Why does it seem that this negativity that just seems to rise up, why is that? Wouldn't you want to find a final answer to all of that? Okay? Sometimes what we do is we hide. We kind of hide because underneath all of it is a sense of hopelessness, like, I'll never get through this again. Someone once taught us, or we've made the story up, that as we go through the transformation in our life, that it goes on and we go through these cycles, and that is true when we're about transformation. But I'm here to tell you that we've done transformation and it's been another step. It's been a wonderful step, but now it's time to awaken. See, transformation is when we study and we do the things to change our consciousness, when we release and allow Spirit to work through us. But there's another way after we've done all that practice, and it's the total surrender to Spirit that takes us to a state of awakening. A couple years ago, I wondered, who else besides Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King and all these wonderful souls, Dalai Lama, is there anybody else in our world that's awakened? And who are they? I wanted to find these people. Wouldn't you want to find them and talk to them and say, how did this happen? Where does it lie for me? How can I be an awakened person? And I began to wonder that. And along what happened about that time is I discovered through Oprah some of the awakened souls. I had been recording on my DVR all of the Oprah's life classes, but I haven't looked at them. And one day, I thought, I am just totally wiped out. I have no energy. I am just going to blob in front of the TV and watch some of these things I've recorded because I've been so busy. And wow, one of the people that came up was Michael Singer in his wonderful book, Untethered Soul. And I got the book and I read it and I absorbed it. And I was like, this is the key. This is the key, that there's two of us, Eckhart Tolle, the observer, and that which is observed, and our true selves is the observer. That's what takes us in knowing the I Am presence. So, on my spiritual journey, just prior to this, I made a very bold proclamation for my life. I'm going to tell you, be careful about bold proclamations. Because when you make a word, use your words so boldly, what happens, it occurs. And sometimes what we have to do is slough off or chemicalize, as Charles Fillmore said, some of the old states of consciousness that have to be let go so that we can be our new selves. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't feel very good during those times, does it? So, 2 years ago, I was attending Mary Mannon Morrissey's prosperity class at the Unity Church in Asbury, New Jersey. And I made the strong proclamation before my classmates that I would have mastery over health, wealth, and relationships. I boldly proclaimed that I would have mastery over health, wealth, and relationships, because what I noticed is these were the three loops that I kept going through in my life. And I was tired of coming back and facing it again. Do you ever get tired of the same old story over and over and over and over and over? I ask you, when is it enough? When do we stop allowing ourselves to be triggered from the past, to come up in our present, to have to heal and transform more? When do we say 36 or 50 years is enough? And I got there. But I have to tell you, I didn't know the way. And I'm here today because I'm going to share my life story of the recent past that helped me see the hope for us and how maybe the awakened souls have learned this. This is my path. It's different from Michael Singer's. But I'm here to share this because I say before you, as I stand here, I am awake. And I'm here to bring a message to the world. And you are the very first group of people that are going to hear it. Ironically, I was associate minister here 19 years ago for 6 months, and I never once got up and did a talk. This is my very first time in 19 years that I have gotten the privilege to stand before you and to do this. And I'm going to tell you the time is ripe, because before you stands a whole different being. So, 7 months ago, I was the minister of Unity of Fredericksburg in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I'm going to share with you, just before I left, I was kind of exhausted from being there for a year. There was a lot of stuff that we had to let go of, a lot of work we had to do. And I was being prayerful about it. And so I went to my little handy deck of Ascended MasterCards, and I asked, what was mine to do? And I picked a card that said, leave now. What? I'm committed. I have a year's contract. What do you mean leave now? Where do I go? What do I do? How do I support myself? This is crazy. I don't want to see these cards. I took a deep breath and I went to Sacramento to go through the chaplaincy training for Unity. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to reinstate the prayer consciousness of this ministry that I so loved, that attracted me there. And one by one, my chaplaincy team began to resign, and we did not have a prayer team. So I was like, this is where I'm going to begin. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to get trained, and I'm going to train people to do this. And we will create a rich prayer consciousness that will bring us all back together in synergy. So when I went out there, I got coached by some of Unity's top ministers, Mike Moran, our past CEO of our worldwide ministries, James Trapp. I had the privilege of being with them. And I made new friends. And what became apparent was that I had to have an internal shift in me. And that there were things that I were doing that was enabling this congregation to show up the way they were showing up. But I loved them with all my heart. And I was willing to do whatever it was for the highest and best of us all. And so I came back shortly after the 4th of July. And my third day back to work, I walked in, and I was greeted, and I was asked how I was, and I said, not well. And I went into the office, and I called my doctor. Long story short, I found myself in the emergency room, and I found myself being diagnosed with cancer. But they didn't know if it was, which kind of cancer it was. So I laid there. I was in excruciating pain, so they thought it could have been pancreatic cancer. And when I asked what they would do to help me with pancreatic cancer, they just kind of got this glazed over look on their face, and they walked out, I have to go check this other patient. And I knew the news was not good. And then they told me, but it also could be colon cancer, and they were more optimistic about what might happen, and they said, well, we have to wait to see after you have your colonoscopy. Well, 9 days later, I finally had the colonoscopy. Morphine was not helping me with the pain. And during this time, about the third day, I surrendered because I knew I was dying. Okay? And I surrendered. It was beautiful because I felt like my hospital bed became this bed of roses, rose petals, and I began to sink deeper and deeper into it. And I kept saying that this hospital bed was my Bodhi tree. And I surrendered, and I came to acceptance that if this is what I was to have to do, if I was to have a life transition, I had total peace with it. But then I surrendered, and I said, Spirit, if there's something else for me to do here, let me do it. If it's my time to leave the planet and my work is done, I'm willing to do that also. And so what happened is I had my surgery. I was told that there was cancer in 4 of my lymph nodes and I needed chemotherapy. And I went to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. That's a commercial. Wonderful place that integrates mind, body, and spirit. How lucky I was. How privileged. And they flew me to Chicago. And the very first time I got there, I was sitting in this beautiful atrium, and the head of transportation came up to me and said, "Can I give you a hug?" I was like, this is like a Unity church, sure. Now, I was very frightened about the needles. I'm needle phobic and all the stuff that was going to happen. I didn't even want chemotherapy, but I knew I wanted to keep both of my feet in the medical arena and the holistic arena, so I was willing to do what was ever before me. And as this woman hugs me, she looks at me and she said, "Are you awake?" I'm in a hospital. Does she mean the kind of awake that I'm thinking of? This couldn't be. So, but I took a deep breath. It's like I only have one of me. I mean, I'm up, I'm talking to her, I'm physically awake. So she must mean the other awake. And I looked her in the eye and I said, yes. And I think that was the first time in my life that I realized that I was awake. But it didn't feel very awake because I was very fearful. Okay? And she said, "Wait 1 minute, I'm intuitive. I'll be right back." And she brings me this brochure for someone from the holistic team that does like 14 or 15 things, EFT and Reiki and yada, yada, yada. She said, "You need to go see Susie." So I make my appointment and I go to see Susie, and I'm sitting in a hospital talking to this woman. She says, "Tell me your story." And I'm telling her story and I'm sobbing. And she's laughing. She's giggling. And I'm just going, this is interesting. And finally she said, "Let me stop you." She said, "I don't want you to think that I'm bizarre and weird, that I'm laughing," but she said, "I need to ask you something. Do you believe in ascended masters and angels?" And I go, "Yes." She went, "Phew." She says, "Because this room is packed with them. I'm in a hospital. This is what they're telling me." How good does it get? How good does it get? And so what the Ascended Masters said to me through her was that I had created structures. We've all created structures in our life to get to now. We've done a very good job. And what I had to do is, in order for where I was headed, I had to create new structures. And I said, "What are they?" And they said, "You have to figure it out yourself." So I'm here to say that we've all created structures of knowing. And it's time to create new structures. So breathe. Keep observing. That was just the beginning. I come back to Fredericksburg, Virginia. I was released from my position because I ran out of hours. I had to go, and I lost my apartment. I had no place to live, and I was facing homelessness. And then my daughter offered me a little space in her basement, which I took, which was the better option. But that was not where I was willing to go, but I finally just gave in. I love her dearly. I knew no one in Frederick, Maryland. I had no supports. Both my daughter and Dave and my granddaughter were all busy with their lives, and so I laid in this basement and I felt trapped, alone. So now I have no money. My health is at its worst, and I'm going through chemotherapy, and my relationships seem to be null and void. Well, where is the strong proclamation of mastery of health, wealth, and relationships? This I know now, even though I didn't know then, because I was feeling hopelessness, that was my grand opportunity for mastery. Did it look like a master most of the time? Hell no. Because I felt hopeless. And my well-meaning friend, like Job, did you ever read the story of Job? His whole life fell apart. Were saying, Judy, don't feel hopeless. Reverend Judy, you've taught us not to feel hopeless. I mean, oh my gosh, I hit bottom. And then I felt like I failed as a minister because I was not in this global, positive way of thinking. How could this be? So here is a structure that I learned that I would like to leave you with today. We have come to believe that there's positive and negative feelings and emotions, haven't we? That's a structure that we've come to believe in. And I'm here to stir you up a little bit. Notice if there's a reaction after you hear this, but there's no such thing as positive and negative feelings. There are just feelings and emotions, and they just are. What we do, most of us, is we suffer, because if you look at there's like higher vibrational energies, mediocre energies that we operate most of the time, and then there's lower energies. But as human beings, we go through this full range of emotions all the time. At the very bottom is hopelessness. At the very top is love. And what I have to say, what I've noticed, is that as this positive thinking person, I would stop myself before I got to hopelessness. And what I've realized is that most of us operate in our everyday world with this low-grade feeling of hopelessness. That's what causes us to stay in jobs that we're not happy, okay, because we want to retire in 10 years and have a good retirement. But in the meanwhile, what are we sacrificing? Our joy. And maybe the opportunity to do something different that's more exciting, which is where I'm headed right now. We stay in relationships where we feel like a walking zombie because somehow we have to change so that it gets better. And what if this is as good as it gets? Can you feel the energy right now? Observe it. Just observe it. Let it flow, because that's what Michael Singer says. Just observe it, because, see, it's our perception of all this that has to be shifted. See, I even discovered, and I'm paraphrasing, Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said that attachment to negative feelings as well as positive feelings is not healthy. They just are. And so what we've become, I believe, are in our desperation not to hit and feel the hopelessness and allow it to sort of blow through our hair, to just sort of maneuver through, is that we avoid it just before we hit it, and we move back and forth. And I'm going to tell you that if we can face that which makes us feel hopeless, and we might not even know what that is, but we all have our stories. How many of you have felt that you could not forgive someone from your past? Okay? That's a story because we're hopeless about that, having a movement through that. Do you see? Is it true that we cannot forgive, or is it a belief? What if we believed something more interesting? What if we believed, as Jesus did when he was on the cross and he said, "Father, forgive them, for they knew not what they did"? What if we became that open and kept in our hearts, because our part 2 of this book is about being in that heart, keeping our hearts open. Because Michael Singer says that all the energy we do to hold down those energies based on old perceptions takes away from our energy because we're closing off our heart. And I know you people, even though I might not know you personally, you're here because you want to keep your heart open. Right? And the only way through it is to just observe every feeling that comes through, just like Reverend Ogden with the storm. We say things like, I don't watch TV anymore, I don't have a TV because I don't like to see what's going on in the world. What's underneath that? Hopelessness. Jesus said that we could be in the world but not of it. What if when we attain this awakeful state, that we can have every experience we ever had, but be in the world, but not of it. Not to be affected in a way that we crash and burn, stay away from church because we don't look very positive, and come return when we feel better. What if we can be so open that we could say, I'm feeling hopeless about this. And somebody who's compassionate enough in our community would say, tell me more. What's going on? And from that state of what we really know what hopelessness feels like, we can listen with compassion, but see the possibility of that person rising out. What would that be like for us? Wouldn't that give us a sense of hope? Connection? Wouldn't that raise us to a higher vibrational level? And allow that just to be? And that's where I'm at. So one of the driving forces that I still have not conquered totally or mastered is my proclamation about mastering wealth. In fact, in April, all sense of appearance of support financially will end. And so all through my chemotherapy, I began to worry about what I was going to do to bring in more money, and my support systems on the phone would say, Judy, that's not your job now. Your job is to heal. And in December, even though I was supposed to have chemotherapy through April, my doctor came in, and he throws my file on the desk. He goes, boring file, boring patient, you're cancer-free. I was sitting here, right where you're sitting, about a month and a half ago, still on chemotherapy. Reverend Jennifer was talking. It was nothing that she said. But it came to me that the same God that healed my cancer will open the doorway to my future. But what is it? What is my vision? Because, see, when we're sitting in the pits, if we could see our vision, we move right through it. What is it? What's my vision? I didn't have one because I knew I wanted to leave ministry behind, but I didn't know what I was moving through. And one day, about the middle of January, I knew it. I want to support cancer patients and their loved ones maneuver their way to wholeness, whether that person continues to live in this world or to go beyond. I want to support them maneuvering, because I'm going to tell you, when I sat before my counselor at Cancer Treatment Center and I boo-hooed, she didn't say stop and be positive. She said, this is what cancer patients need to do. It is the most devastating thing that could happen, and you just cry until there's no more tears. And so I did. And now I know that I want to be like her, and I want to support people through the tears, through the hopelessness, to the understanding that hope arises, that hope is the opposite of hopelessness, that courageousness is just the thing that we're given to maneuver it. Now, I'm not really sure how this is all going to happen, but I'm just going to end this with a little story. A week ago Thursday, I got a text from my friend in Sacramento I met when I went to do my training. I stayed with Sherry and her husband, and she had a picture of the New Bay Bridge, and she says, sending you light from San Francisco Bay. And I went, oh, I wish I was there. This is my favorite city in the whole world. That was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I got a call from the executive director of an organization that trains cancer coaches. And she said to me, can you come to San Francisco by tomorrow morning? No lie. No lie. The course costs $3,000. I was going to ask my musician friends to have house concerts to raise the funds so that I could go. I still need funds because I borrowed from Peter to pay Paul to get there. But I went. I didn't, you know how Jesus said that the lilies of the field don't toil for tomorrow? So I thought, I'll do that. I'll trust that. And I went. So at 5 o'clock on Thursday, I had to get a ticket. I had to make arrangements for my dogs. I had to do my laundry, pack my suitcase, find a place to stay. 2:30 in the morning, I was on the highway going to BWI, and at 10:15 in the morning, I stepped off the plane in San Francisco. So now I'm immersed in this coaching process. Will go on for 12 weeks, and I have to go back to San Francisco again. But I have to say, I don't know how it's going to happen. I have people telling me that it'll take a long time to build a coaching business, but I know Spirit will undergird this process. I'm writing a book because my message is about finding hope in a world that appears hopeless. But I do know that there are masters walking the planet. And some of you are masters, and some of you are learning to master. But I'm saying today, if you're willing to give up and just observe and to release, there's a scripture that says, and I'm paraphrasing it, "My Father, who does all things for good, works through you." I'm telling you that there's a presence working through you and as you that can move you through any low-grade hopelessness or high-grade hopelessness that you have in your life. That in a world where many people, and look at a blizzard can make us feel hopeless, can't it? It's not the worst thing that's going on in the world. So we are the light bearers that bring the message of hope, but we are also the compassionate love bearers who says, whatever you feel is just perfect and normal for your situation. Let me hold the high watch for you. Let me pray with you. What is it that you need? So I invite you now to let go of the past, to live in this moment, to observe that which needs to be observed. Because anything that you observe that appears to be negative cannot hurt you, because that's what keeps us connected with the I am. So this is what I like you to do. I want you to affirm, I am the light. Together. I am the light. I am the love.
I am the love.
I am the life.
I am the life.
I am willing.
I am willing.
Heal my unwillingness.
Heal my unwillingness.
I now allow my Father to lift me through the past. I let go now. And I receive. Thank you, God. Namaste.